Oh, big fish, monster. Let's go!
Let's go, baby! Let's go!
Let's go!
Fishing 2021!
Welcome to Texas Rig Fishing Tips with
Good job. Sponsored by QT.
All right. Today we're going to go over Texas rig fishing, particularly for bass, and we're going to go over start to finish. So how we rig up our gear as far as the knot, the hook, the weight, and type of bait we like to use, and then we'll go into the technique as far as the actual casting and retrieval process goes. So this morning it is
A whopping
30 degrees. Yeah, it's in the 30s. We got Matt, got Griff, and
we are at the pond for our first trip of 2021. Well, first fishing trip of 2021.
this is probably the dumbest thing we've done. It's freezing.
Yeah, it's cold as crap. It's cold as crap.
But we're out here for you guys.
Yeah, we're out here for you guys. But we're in the pond, which is the first time we've been back here in what seems like forever.
Probably 6 months.
Yeah. The water is a whopping 46 degrees right now. So
Ooh.
these bass are going to be pretty
Okay, Mike
lethargic.
Tyson. Go bath fishing.
We're bath fishing.
Oh my gosh.
These bass are going to be pretty lethargic, so they're not going to be real active. So, we'll see how it goes. Me and Griff are not, by any means of the word, avid wintertime bass fishermen. We like to fish when it's a little warmer. 55.
We like
degrees.
to fish when the bass like to eat.
But we said, heck with it, why not? Let's get out here, shoot a video, see if we can't catch some fish, and give you guys some, information that can help you guys out. So stay tuned, and let's see if we can catch something.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a fishing vessel. This is what you call a rig. It's what we call in the South a rig. All right, so gonna remove this other lure real quick, and then we're gonna tie on. I believe I have a 3/16 black bullet weight, and we're gonna tie it onto a 5/0 hook, maybe a 4/0. Depends on where you are and how big the fish are you're fishing for, and the size of your bait, of course. Is going to determine which hook size and or weight. Now the weight's going to determine more of your depth of the water you're fishing. But in a pond like this, with anywhere from 4 to 12 feet, a 3/16 is fine. So I like to do a clinch knot. You take your line, you put it through one time, and then you twist it anywhere from 5 to 7 times. I never really count, kind of just guesstimate. And then the most important part of this is wetting your line before you clinch it. So once you finish your twisting, you feed your line back through your loop above the eye of the hook. Pull your lead through, and then that little hole you have, that loop you have with your line, you want to feed your tail back through, pull, and then most importantly, wet your line. Importantly, you want to wet your line and then pull tight. And then however long you want your little tail, usually cut mine about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. And then effectively, that's your setup.
Ta-da!
And then the next step is to choose the bait that you like. Personally,
Also depends on where you're fishing at, the conditions, the forage of the area of the fish you are going after, and the location.
color of water, So for this pond particularly, I've been fishing a long time, and pumpkin seed and watermelon seed are the two best colors, followed by a June bug or a black with a chartreuse tail. But today I have pumpkin seed, chartreuse tail. My personal favorite, and Matt can attest to this,
Yeah.
is the speed crawl, watermelon candy, and then we got a 10-inch monster curly tail.
That actually, there's not a bunch of big fish here anymore, but that giant worm does actually pretty decent in here.
All right, so we're gonna go with crawl.
Trusty speed crawl.
I'm gonna go with speed crawl today. I'm gonna opt for a more, maybe a less active bait approach. That big tail might be too much on that long worm, at least for the cold water temp. So
Yeah. These fish are gonna be pretty lethargic today. So.
And then so this is the way I do it. You take your hook, take the belly side of your bait. You want to go through the top of your bait, about an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch in, and then you want to pull it through the kind of the neck area of your bait, if you want to call it that. You slide it up over your loop, and you want to cover your knot, and it's going to sit right there on that hump of your hook. And then you bring your hook here, bend your bait back. I like to personally push mine through and then kind of pinch the cover of the hook so it's weedless. Personally, I push mine all the way through. Some people opt to keep their hook completely inside their bait. It just depends on where you're fishing, how much brush there is, things like that.
It's really just personal preference.
But I prefer to do this personally because when you get a fish to bite and the hook's already pierced through, for me, I get a lot more hook set conversion. I get a lot more hookups and things like that. So that's what I found works in this pond and works for bass for me. Everyone has their own preference, but for me, that's how I like to do it. And there's your setup.
Now there's come on, get here.
All right, so I'm going to treat this tutorial as something that is for a beginner up to someone who is experienced but wants to try something new. So we're going to go from the very beginning to the very end as far as how I do everything, so there's no questions left to be had. So my setup here actually is a throwback. It's an old carrot stick with an Abu Garcia Revo X. Bought this last year. Great reel, best value reel, around $100. Carrot stick, don't make them anymore, but the comps probably $150 rod. So all right, so what I like to do, we're out here in deeper water at the moment, and I'm gonna go ahead and cast it, and we're gonna let it sink. I like to leave the spool open personally until the line will slowly you'll see it sink out in the water. Once you see your line stop moving, that's when I like to flip the bell, and then I slowly retrieve my line up until the point where it's tight, semi-tight in the water. So once you get it somewhat tight, you're gonna slowly kind of pick up, and what that bait's doing in the water, it's kind of dragging or bouncing on the bottom. And so then you drop your rod tip back down, reel your slap back up, kind of work it again. Now there's two options here. You can either reel down and just slowly pick up, which gives it a more kind of consistent motion along the bottom, or you can reel down and kind of bounce it, kind of work it a little bit. Personal preference, but you pick up all the way till you're almost at a 90-degree angle with the water, and rod straight up, reel back down, and just continue to work it however you prefer to do it. If one motion's not working, you can try the other, and vice versa. So that's kind of what I do as far as working a Texas rig. When you're trying to pick a spot to cast to, you got to think about that line's going to kind of swing down, that bait's going to swing down towards you. So it's never going to go, when you're casting at a certain location, you want to cast further than where you want your bait to be, because when it hits the water, it's going to drop and swing back towards you. So that's something to keep in mind as well when you're working this bait.
What instances would you use a Texas rig?
I'll give you an example. Tyler, Matt, and myself, we all went to Lanier back in this was one of the May trips, late May trip, early June, and it's in our second Lanier video. We'll put a link up in the corner here. But in the end of that video, at the beginning, Matt and Tyler were using jerk baits and other lures like that to catch spots on Lanier. Well, good old me, once we got near a bank, I was throwing my Texas rig, and I hadn't gotten a bite all day. And the only way I caught a fish was on a Texas rig. And in that scenario, we were in a smaller kind of cut on Lanier or any lake where you're closer to the bank. You have structure or kind of a quick drop off. That's where I like to use Texas rigs. Or in a pond like this. Texas rig is good for weeds, structure, things like that, because it can be weedless setup as well. So personally, when I'm near the bank or a drop off or structure is when I like to use Texas rig.
What about colors?
Go ahead.
All right. As you can see, this water's fairly clear here. That watermelon seed is more of a neutral color. With clearer water, you want more of a neutral color anyways. With more murky water, you want to use more of a loud color. Chartreuse, your whites, just whatever can catch their eye. You're going to get more of a reaction bite out of darker water, murkier water. But in water like this, you might get more of a chase with a clear water color. But personally, anywhere from pumpkin seed, watermelon seed, any of your more neutral kind of earth tones for clear water, and then darker water, of course, murky water, you want to do a more off the wall color, maybe a black, June bug. I've used June bug in pretty clear water, and it's worked. June bug is kind of a purple color, and that's worked well for me. I've used the June bug black with a chartreuse tail in clear water in this lake, and it's been very successful. Just
That's
depends.
my go-to.
Yeah, Matt's go-to is the June bug chartreuse tail. Right.
We can talk.
So on this setup,
we can talk about.
we'll go into depth a little bit on what kind of line we use. Personally, mono's fine. If you want to have if you're a high dollar person that likes to spend a lot of money on line, fluoro is always a great option. But either mono or fluoro. I typically don't use braid on Texas rig. Personally, you differ?
No, you say you don't use braid on a Texas rig, and I was just raising my hand to I do.
Oh, well, I mean, personally, I like mono or fluoro I feel like there's a little more feel or touch to it, finesse. For me, I can feel more of response from the line, like if I get a bite. Personally, than braid. That's personal preference. But anywhere from like 8 to 15 pound line is fine as far as mono or fluoro or the comparable braid size. It's all personal preference. But I tend to stay away from braid using Texas rig.
Me personally, me and Griff kind of work everything a little differently. We both have, our preferences and everything. But we both basically grew up on this pond we are currently on right now, fishing Texas rigs. So we've been fishing Texas rigs since we were, 8, 9, somewhere around in that range.
Younger.
Yeah, for you even younger. I'm 2 years older than you. So, like me personally, I do use braid. I like this is spool with 25-pound braid. Now, depending on how finicky the fish are, I will run like a 10, 12-pound fluoroliter on occasion. But right now, I just got it straight braid, which I probably should have a leader on because the fish are lethargic and all that today. But I got it tied straight on with a little, I don't know what color this is. With a little Christy
Closer
crawl.
to a June bug color.
Yeah, it's kind of close to a June bug color, but it's more of like a blue. Actually, hold on. Yeah, the black and blue flake young Christy crawl. Actually, the last time I went out, I actually caught one of my only 2 fish with this.
So Matt, are there any other variety or technique changes you can do as far as different weights or setups on Texas rig?
Now, so one thing that I do, so I'll kind of give you an example here. So one thing that I do, if once it hits bottom and I get, you know, kind of a tight and I'm kind of working it, you can vary the speed at which you work it. So for example, if like during the spawn or when fish are more active during the warmer months, one thing that I do is I'll work it to the side, and I'll kind of work it faster, or I'll work it slower depending on the situation, and I'll kind of vary it until I start getting bites, and then once I start getting bites, I'll just mimic it. That's kind of how, you know, that's kind of how you figure out like what works and what doesn't. Like with jerk baits, you figure out your rhythm for, you know, for your retrieve. I kind of do the same thing, but another way you can do it is instead of coming up like this, you can also come to the side, and it'll keep it, like, especially with like a creature bait. What it'll do is it'll kind of keep it on the bottom and kind of drag it along the bottom, like it's kind of moving along the bottom instead of having it bounce.
Touch on that split shot thing you were talking about, or the variety of the glass bead between your weight.
Oh, the glass
and your
bead.
hook.
So I don't know if you guys can actually see this. Can you see it?
Yep.
All right. So what they do is they'll take beads like this, and basically instead of like how me and Griff do is pull the bait over the knot, they'll actually run this bead between the weight and the hook, so it kind of sits over the knot and helps protect. And one, it works as it has two different, you know, jobs, or it does two different things. One thing that'll do it, one, it protects the knot from the weight kind of smacking down on it. Another thing that it also does is it actually makes a little like click noise, so almost acts as like a rattle trap or something with like the beads and clackers in them. Kind of has the same effect. So whenever you're working it along the bottom, you know, your bead and your weight are, you know, making noise down there, kind of as an extra attractant to fish. I don't use it at all during the winter time. The occasional time I do fish in the winter time, because at like right now I'm freezing my butt off. I don't like being cold.
All right, so one other thing to keep in mind, during spawn when they're on bed, a great technique is Texas rig, because you can put that bait on the bottom right in the bed, and you can work it enough to where it bothers the fish. You can work it enough to where it bothers the fish enough, whether it be the male that's protecting the bed, or the female that's on the bed actually, you know, laying eggs and spawning. You can bother them enough to get them to pick it up, and once it's in their mouth, you set the hook, because they're picking it up to clean the bed out. So there's two things you can do there. One thing I've seen is once you catch the male off the bed, you can throw back, and then you have a chance at the female, which is of course the bigger fish. So Texas rig is great for that. You'll have to vary your bait sizes, because a lot of times they won't pick up something that's larger. I've learned, this is just what I've seen in my personal experience, a smaller bait with a smaller hook works better when they're in a bed, as far as bothering them to get them to pick it up, so you set the hook. Just a thought, a little quick tip there. But for now, we're gonna get back to fishing here and try to put a fish. Cold. But for now, we're gonna try to put a few fish in the boat and using Texas rig.
But Griff's hooked up for the first fish. And it's a big fish.
Ooh. Get the net, get the net.
Net's under you, net's under you. In here. Oh, big fish, monster.
Keep it.
We're gonna have to hold that.
Let's go!
Let's go, baby! Let's go!
Let's go!
First fish in 2021! First fish in 2021!
Let's go, baby! Texas rigging in the winter, baby!
First twist.
First fish of 2021 in the
Let's
books.
go.
And that's a solid fish.
That's a slab, baby.
Let's go, baby!
Little Roland Martin, or not Roland Martin. Little Jimmy Houston. All right.
Me and you both did that on camera.
Let's go. Let's go, baby. Ah! We hope you enjoyed it. We ended up doing pretty good. Correction ended up doing well. Caught 2, 1 over 4 pounds, and
one about a quarter of a pound.
but you know, a quarter pound still more than 0. So
Yeah.
you know, glad we were able to catch some fish using the technique we're trying to teach. So that's, you know, just glad it worked out that way. Definitely makes someone who is teaching a technique look a lot smarter and a lot more knowledgeable when they actually catch a fish doing it. So, but if you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, leave a comment. Let us know if there's any other techniques you want us particularly to try out for you guys or to explain to you guys. We're glad to do it, and we have the resources to do so. So just let us know.
Yeah,
And,
and one thing I am going to try to do this year is expand my
Technique horizons.
my toolbox, if you will.
Toolkit.
Yeah, my toolkit, my knowledge, and I kind of I have a tendency to stick to the same, you know, methods.
He likes to get a bait bucket, a chair, and 3 or 4 rods and sit on a bank.
Sometimes. That's also, other than bass fishing.
That's
with
not
you,
a really big slaunch thing, at least while I'm part of it. That's not going to be a big slaunch thing. We'll bank fish here. I'm down to bank fish here. I'm down to bank fish really good ponds, but not a big lake.
Well, no, we have a boat for that. But we're gonna work on expanding our toolkit with, you know, different methods, like the drop shot, stuff like that. I've done the drop shot. I've used it a few different times, but stuff like that. We're looking to expand. So if there's anything that you guys want to see, let us know. You can hit us up on, you know, leave a comment on this video below, or
Go over to Instagram.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You know, hit us up there on anything you guys want to see, and we'll see if we can make it happen. But until next time, y'all have a good one.
Peace, baby.